All right, what's up, guys? This is Jimmy with Hifly Fitness. Today we have a special guest on the channel here. We got CJ Allen, who was my coach. He's an elite powerlifter. He's currently training to compete in Australia so that he can compete at the Arnold. This 2015.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah, I'm just gonna let him introduce himself more, and then we'll get started.
Awesome. I'm CJ. I am a clinical physiologist. I specialize in rehab and strength and conditioning. Most of the work that I do is with strength athletes, but I work a little bit with athletes of all different varieties too. My primary research interest has been rehab and has been, making sure that the hormonal picture is taken care of for athletes, which is, of course, a huge deal. And a lot of what I do with training is I try to really work with specificity. I try to make sure that the stuff that I'm doing is not useless. I try to make sure that we're getting a training effect out of every single thing that we're doing. And if something is not making a measurable impact, then we kill it. So I'm big on specificity. I'm big on injury prevention. I'm big on managing that.
Okay, cool. So basically, what do you think one of the biggest misconceptions about minimalist training? Because I've talked about this before in my previous videos, and there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about it online, even after the video I made, and it's just they don't understand really what it exactly means. So can you touch up on that a little bit?
People think that that the goal is to make it easy. And that's the biggest mistake I think that they make when they think about it, is that they see minimalism and they automatically assume that we're trying to do less work. We're trying to minimize the time that we spend in the gym, or we're trying to minimize the amount that we have to do to get to where we want to be. But I think that's looking at it the wrong way. Clearly there are some minimalists out there that are like that. But when I think about minimalism, I think about not minimizing what we have to do, but maximizing the results of what we're getting out of what we are doing. So for me, it's more about cutting the fluff, making sure that we're not doing stuff that's not doing us any good. So I think what it is just making a needs analysis of the athlete, deciding what they need, what's going to be best to get us there, and then doing just that. Not continuing to do more stuff that's not going to be giving us any effects, not trying to make it complicated, not trying to make it, a lot of variety, very fancy, just taking a very hard-line approach on, specific to powerlifting, what's going to make people squat, bench, and deadlift better. The answer is not, 3-board chain presses on a foam pad. It's do more bench press, as an example, So it's all about that. We find out what we need to do to get better, and then we do it.
So how would this vary? This concept, even though you just talked about it, it seems like people of different levels of training and training advancement would need to look at this from a different angle. Like for a beginner, minimalist training would mean a lot different than an elite powerlifter. So what do you think the biggest differences are there?
With your novice or your beginner, you're going to be looking at trying to get a lot of training effect out of a little bit of work, because their work capacity is lower. They're not really able to spend the same amount of time in the gym that the advanced people are. They don't have the recovery capacity. They don't have the skill. So for them, it's a lot more minimal, and you want to see what exercises, what movements are giving you the most bang for your buck, and really focus on making sure you're getting the work that you need to do done without overworking the capacity that they have. So for beginners, that a lot of times looks like just the 3 main power lifts, or for weightlifters, it's, snatch, clean and jerk, squat. Strongman competitors, it's a lot of overhead lifting, carrying, and loading. But it's essentially for those beginners, when they're using minimalist training, we're just getting them in the gym, getting them doing the stuff that they're doing in their competitions, and then giving them just 1 or 2 accessories, if we give them any accessories, just to combat the balance issues that you get from a lot of benching, or just to give them a little bit of boost in an area that they need. So it really is minimal the way people are thinking when you think about it for a novice. But as people advance and you figure out what their deficiencies are, and as they rack up injuries, because injuries are inevitable long term, and as they develop their strengths and weaknesses too, different things become apparent, as in what you need to get them to their goals. So for your intermediates and for your advanced, a lot of times that takes the form of adding a little bit of rehab work. or adding some bodybuilding work for muscles that just are not responding the way you need them to make the gains. And it a lot of times becomes for them more about staying safe and staying healthy than it is for the novices, which is a lot more about let's just get them in the gym and get them to lift weight.
So for a novice, let's say they can't perform the squat, the bench, and the deadlifts correctly, then what would minimalist training mean in that sense?
Well, it's highly context dependent, but generally speaking, with the novices and the beginners that are already moving pretty well and they can do the lifts, it's going to be easy, and we'll just kind of get them started right away, kind of just get them on into a program and get them working and get them under the bar. But if there's movement restrictions, or if there's injuries, or if it's somebody that's not ever done a lot of squatting before, for instance, then we sometimes have to do some things to get them ready to do the kind of training that we need to do. So for them, what it would look like is, we would do some movement screens. We would figure out what their movement deficiencies are, where the injuries are, where their weak points are, and then we would start addressing that until we can get them doing the movement the way we need them to get it. A good example would be, particularly with the squat, a lot of people have mobility restrictions. They've got proprioception issues. They've got all kinds of stuff going on that's preventing them from doing the squat. So in those cases, we might use regressions for a little while instead of just throwing them right into a back squat.
Yeah.
So we might have them doing partial squats or box squats, or we might have them doing some work just with the body weight, or with goblet squats with a kettlebell or a dumbbell. Some things that are not what you'd consider heavy work. Things that you would really just consider more along the lines of a warm-up or an active recovery type of movement. But in those situations, we're just really trying to get them to a point where they can move well again. And once they are, then we can put them back on a more basic program. But the principles still apply. You still want to just look at what they need to get better and then have them doing only that.
Yeah.
So for our squat example again, if somebody's got a mobility restriction, so they're having trouble getting to depth, we might make their primary movement a high box squat that's an inch or two above parallel, or an inch or two above the place where they have their movement restriction. So we would be able to train them from the position where they're strong in, and still get some squatting in without pushing them into an area where they're uncomfortable or where they can't perform well. And then we might do some mobility work following that to address those needs specifically.
So there isn't oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So there wouldn't be a time where you'd say, if somebody can't perform a squat, bench, or deadlift, you would completely remove them from any sort of, let's say just for the squat, you wouldn't tell them to just do mobility work until they can squat. You would primarily just have them do what they can until that other stuff is fixed.
Yeah, they still have to be squatting, or they're never going to learn to squat.
Okay.
Mobility work can get you only so far. It's like with any other skill. Until you're actually practicing that skill, you're not going to pick it up. So for a lot of people, they can do quarter squats pretty well, or they can do half squats pretty well, or we can get them down to a high box or something like that. And it's important that we work those motor patterns, since we're trying to actually improve that motor pattern. And even if we're not able to get them all the way down into depth, or we have to change some things in their stance, or we have to keep it bar only or no weight for a while, we still have got to be getting in there and doing that movement. Because it really is the best way to train that.
Okay.
And I think that speaks to what minimalism is. It's if we want somebody to get better at squatting and they can't squat, then we're going to have them work on the squat until they can squat.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell them do 4 different groin exercises and spend an hour doing mobility work and then do one squat in their entire workout.
Yeah.
We're going to have them on the box or holding onto an upright support so they can keep their balance. We're going to be doing whatever they need to do to get that work in and actually have that motor learning take place.
Okay.